Direct- The direct line system used on VLCC carry two or three grade of cargo. Simple line leading in the tanks. Due to straight length of pipeline, there is better suction and less loss of pressure. Fewer valves and bends means less erosion and leak, less maintenance required. Thorough washing of line is not possible unless the washing are flushed into the tank and discharged from there. Due to fewer valves, leaks are difficult to control, valve segregation not provided. The initial cost of fitting is less than the ring main system. Ring main system used on product carriers carries several different products. Due to the number of bends, joints and valve, it takes longer time. Due to the number of bends, joints and valve means more erosion and leaks, more maintenance required. Thorough washing of line is possible without flushing into the tank. Required two wall segregation between products. The initial cost of fitting is higher. What precaution will take while loading valuable cargo? Precaution while loading valuable cargo. Valuable cargo should be stored in lockers which can be locked, or it should be overstored with other suitable cargo. Preferably work only. What precaution you will take while loading valuable cargo? Precaution while loading valuable cargo. Precaution while loading valuable cargo. Valuable cargo should be stored in lockers which can be locked, or it should be stored with other suitable cargo. Preferably work only by day. If night work is unavoidable, good lighting in all corners of the hold to be provided. Watchman to be put on duty. If shore watchman is used, ship's officer must check on them frequently. Ventilation and other means of access should be covered. Hold access to be locked after cargo work, and other means of entry you like portable ladders to be removed. What precaution what precaution you will take while ballasting or deballasting? Precaution while deballasting, this should be carried out according to the mate's instruction. When ballasting tank, DB tank must not be pressed up. Should there be a leak in the tank top, cargo will be damaged. Ballast and liquid cargo operation must be carried out in close liaison and cooperation with the engine room staff. Sounding and flow rate must be monitored continuously. Ensure that mooring is taut and ship is alongside the jetty and gangway is clear of obstruction. What entries will you make in deck logbook? Entries in deck logbook at port: inspection of the cargo hold by surveyor prior to loading, opening and closing of the hatches, time of arrival and departure of the stevedore labor on ship and the number of gangs, type of commencement and ceasing of cargo work, any interruption or stoppage during cargo work and their reason, the hatch numbers being worked, the morning and evening draft at sea, weather and sea conditions, time when ventilation is carried out, wet and dry bulb of temperature, inspection and tightening of cargo lashing. What precaution you will take while using union purchase? The safe working load of the Union Purchase rig must be calculated in accordance with the Classification Society of Tech Labor Regulation. The operating angle of the derrick should be preferably not less than 30 to the horizontal, and in no case should be less than 15 The maximum included angle between the cargo wires not exceeded 120 The maximum included angle between the cargo wires should not exceed 120 degrees so that the forces in the rig is kept to a minimum. Unduly long sling must not be used. Winchman must not lift the load above the guardrails and hatch combings beyond the minimum required for safety. Runners should not be allowed to rub against the hatch combings. Watchmen should be experienced and should coordinate well. What precaution you will take while using heavy lifts? Precaution: all gear involved should be carefully examined before use. All wires and blocks to be checked for any defects. Sheaves to be examined for free rotation. All gear selected should be of adequate safe working load. Allowance should be made for the weight lifted plus the purchase weight. And links, rings or shackle to ride freely from whichever point they hang. Strops, wire slings, eye bolts, etc. to be examined that they are of adequate strength. While slinging, wood or other packing to be used to protect the sling from any sharp edges on the load and to prevent the sling from cutting into the load. Avoid shocks due to load slipping or sudden start. The ship must have adequate GM. Negative metacentric height must be avoided. The vessel should be initially upright with mooring taut and mained. Gangway must be clear of the jetty. Barges that are not in use must be cast off. Preventer stays may have to be rigged onto the mast. Winches must be put in double gear. Steering line must be secured if possible to the corners of the load. Remove guardrails if possible. What precaution you will take while loading bulk cargoes? Precaution while loading bulk cargoes: inspect hold for suitably prior loading. Ensure that bilge wells, strainer plates, sounding pipes, bilge suction, etc. are tested and satisfactory. Protect deck machinery against dust. Accommodation air conditioning system to be screened and put on recirculation. Sound bilges before and after loading. While loading high density cargo, the cargo should not fall directly into the empty hold as the tank top may get damaged. Deballasting loading sequence, trim, laced gangway, mooring, etc. must be attended to. What precaution you will take while loading concentrates? General cargo vessel may carry concentrates only when cargo is at below the TML. Wet cargoes or liquid should not be loaded in the same compartment as the concentrates. Cargo work should not be carried out during rain. To decrease the effect of oxidation, the cargo should be trimmed reasonably level on completion irrespective of angle of repose to reduce the surface area. Some concentrates such as sulfide are subjected to oxidation and spontaneous combustion if moisture content is very low. In such cases, water may be used only as a spray to cool the cargo and bring up the moisture content. However, a flow state should not be allowed to develop. Shipper must provide a certificate from a competent laboratory stating the FMP, TML and MC test samples to be taken from the stockpile nearest to the shipping point. In case the stockpile is exposed to precipitation, then test sample must be taken just prior to loading. When delivery of cargo is by road, rail or barge, an entry of water into the vehicle is suspected, then random checks at the surface and at half depth should be made on 1 in 5 vehicles. What precaution you will take while loading or carrying coal? Surface ventilation an important necessity during the carriage of coal. Monitoring of temperature at 3 levels in the hold be done at least once a day. The decks are to be kept cool in tropical areas by rigging avnis converging with dunnage or running deck water. Temperature pipes are to be closed to prevent entry of air into the cargo. No smoking signs put up and strictly enforced. No neck lights permitted on the deck in the hold. Fire hoses to be rigged, firemen charged, and other firefighting apparatus kept in a constant state of readiness. Spark arresters to be fitted over the funnel, galley exhausts, and hold ventilators. No hot work, chipping and or painting to be in progress on deck to avoid creating sources of ignition. Flashlights, walkie-talkies, etc. to be intrinsically safe. No oily waste, wood, rope, gunny, etc. to be left in hold or on deck where it can catch fire by spontaneous heating. Fire patrol and gangway watches to be maintained. A sufficient number of safety lamps are to be carried in all coal carrying vessels. All electrical cables and components situated in cargo spread should be free from defects and suitable for use in a methane dust atmosphere. Points of entry and exits of cables should be sealed to prevent passage of gas into the adjacent spaces. If there is evidence of cargo burning, the space should be closed, ventilation stopped, and steel against the entry of air. Boundary cooling to be carried out but at sea, and no water or steam to be directly applied to the coal, as coal reduces the water to hydrogen and forms carbon monoxide, both flammable gases. The ship should regularly monitor the methane, oxygen and carbon monoxide concentration in the hold and in spaces where the gases should accumulate with suitably calibrated instrument. A certificate is obtained from shipper stating the moisture content of the cargo. If this figure is suspected, an on-board test of the moisture content to be carried out and ascertained that is not higher than the TML. Precaution should be taken to prevent ingress of water into the cargo. cargo work to be suspended and hatches closed during the wet weather. Stockpiles must be drained and freshly tested for moisture content before loading. The cargo should be trimmed into the wings and ends of the compartment as far as reasonable and practicable. Hold bilges should be regularly pumped out to remove any water. What precaution you will take while loading and carrying sulfur? No smoking signs. No smoking signs put up and strictly enforced. No neck lights. Fire hoses to be rigged. Firemen charge and other firefighting apparatus kept in constant state of readiness. Spark arresters to be fitted over the funnel, galley exhaust and hold ventilators. No hot work, chipping or painting to be in progress on deck to avoid creating sources of ignition. Flash lights, walkie-talkie, etc. to be intrinsically safe. No oily waste, food rope, gunny, etc. to be left in hold or on deck where it can catch fire by spontaneous heating. Fire patrol and gangway watches to be maintained. No loose metal object, example bilge cover, lacing gear, etc. to be left in hold, as during discharge the grab could strike against it and produce a spark. Fresh water hoses to be rigged on deck. If fire occurs, a fine spray or fresh water may be used or more sulfur showered onto the burning area to be smoothed if the fire large. Close the hatches and hatch entrances and use CO2. Avoid sweeping the hold. Clean hold by hosing down instead of sweeping. Hold must be coated with lime, particularly areas with the paint coating is removed. What precaution you will take while loading or carrying discharging the cotton? Precaution: the hole must be clean, perfectly dry, well aired and absolutely free of oil or grease. Cotton must be not be stored in freshly painted holes. Firefighting equipment must be tested and ready for immediate use and all precaution observed. No smoking signs put up and strictly enforced. No neck lights permitted on deck or in the holes. Fire hoses to be rigged. Firemen charged and other firefighting apparatus kept in a constant state of readiness. Spark arresters to be fitted over the funnel, galley exhaust and hold ventilators. No hot work, chipping or painting to be in progress on deck to avoid creating sources of ignition. Flashlights, walkie-talkie, etc. to be intrinsically safe. No oily waste. Fire patrol and gangway watches. No, all bales should be clean, perfectly dry, free from any grease or oil stains. Wet and dry bales should not be stowed together. Loosely packed bales or those with broken bands and torn wrapping should be rejected, as this permits a circulation and catch fire easily. New material must be used for wrapping and for replacing parts of wrapping. Cut off for sampling or grading of the cargo. Port marks should not be obliterated and the cargo should be well segregated to prevent overcarriage or delay in discharge. Dunnage used should be clean, dry and free from oil or grease. What precaution you will take while loading cement bags? Precaution while loading cements: care must be taken to avoid damage to container during loading. Canvas sling to be used while with bags. Sling must not be dragged or a proper landing platform should be used. Cement should not be loaded in the same compartment as a sugar, ammonia, or its sulfate, as their fumes or gas alter the character of the cement to a quick drying cement. When overstowing other cargo with bagged cement, a firm layer floor or platform is essential. Boards should be placed so as to withstand the weight, as there will be a lot of dust. Any goods which might be adversely affected should not be overstored with cement. Any fine goods should be carefully covered. During the voyage, sweat, any form of moisture must be kept to a minimum. To achieve this, careful attention must be paid to the ventilation. During discharging, the same care must be taken as in loading to prevent excess leakage. What precaution you will take while loading, carrying, discharging dangerous goods? Precaution while loading, carrying, discharge dangerous goods. No smoking signs put up and strictly enforced. No neck lights permitted on the deck or in the holds. Fire hoses to be rigged. Firemen charged and other firefighting apparatus kept in a constant state of readiness. Spark arresters to be fitted over the funnel. Galley exhaust and hold ventilators. No hot work, chipping or painting to be in progress on deck to avoid creating sources of ignition. Flashlights, walkie-talkies, etc. to be intrinsically safe. No oily waste, wood, rope, gunny, etc. to be left in hold or on deck where it can catch fire by spontaneous heating. Fire patrol and gangway watch to be maintained. Refer to the IMDG code and find out the particulars for the cargo to be loaded with regard to hazards. The appropriate international code of signals by day and by night is to be displayed. No bunkering operation is to be carried out during loading or discharging. Wireless transmission should not be done of voltage exceeding 50 volts. Radar should not be operated during loading or discharge. Forklift should not be used in the vicinity of dangerous goods. Loading is to be suspended if inclement weather threatens. Defective packages should not be accepted. Port regulation to be complied. Explosive must be stored in a magazine which is wood lined compartment, sometimes specially constructed to store explosives safely. No electric cables should pass through the magazines. If this is unavoidable, the cable should be sheeted and approved, sealed and non-combustible barrier and tested before loading. Explosives are unstable when wet and should be stored in good, dry, well ventilated space away from hot bulkhead or decks. Electrical fittings must be disconnected in compartment containing dangerous goods. Ventilation fans to the space must be flame proof if not disconnected. Explosives must be stored away from living quarters. Masts must be fitted with an efficient lighting conductor as lightning present as a grave danger. What precaution you will take while loading reefer container? Precaution while loading carrying reefer containers. Prior to loading, check that the plug points are okay and are sufficient spares for reefer machinery are carried. Reefer manifest must be obtained from ashore and details of stowage checked by chief officer and electrician. The stowage of containers on deck must be planned only in those bays where reefer plug points are available. The gantry operator must be made aware of the position of the reefer machinery and the plug point as the container cannot be turned around. Unloading, plug in the reefer and check the working of the machinery. Check the temperature reading and compare it with the set temperature as mentioned in the manifest. If the difference is too large, refuse the container for shipment or lodge a protest. Check the temperature chart for any difference between the actual temperature and that being recorded. Check the chart for proper setting of date and time and for proper functioning. Check ventilator settings if all is okay except the container for shipment. If not, ask the port to correct the deficiencies or note a protest. Once on board, ensure that the container is latched properly. Prior to sailing, prepare a detailed list of sea reefers on board, their location and their temperature settings. Check the temperature daily or as per company instruction. In case of reefer failures or large differences in temperatures, attend to it immediately and inform the company and charters. On arrival, disconnect the reefer before discharge. Precaution for dangerous cargoes in container vessel. Precautions for dangerous precaution for dangerous it's over. Secure the container well. Prepare a detailed list of manifest of all dangerous cargo containers on board and mark their location on stowage plan. Keep a copy of this plan on bridge or fire control room for emergency. This should be accompanied by a copy of the AMS and MFAG procedures. Carry out drills and instruct the crew members regarding the action to be taken in an emergency and use of emergency equipment. Check lashing frequently, especially if bad weather is expected. Obtain weather report regularly and navigate the weather with prudence. On prudence, okay. On arrival, this container should be promptly and properly discharged. What precaution you will take while loading vehicle on ro-ro ship? Precaution while loading a ro-ro ship: deck should not be wet, greasy or slippery, or vehicle's brake should be on the engine in gear. For heavy vehicles, besides the normal securing arrangement, movement must be resisted by jacking or placing rough material between the unit and the deck to increase the friction. Mooring must be all time taut. The ramps rest on the jetty can be raised or lowered to take the changes in the ship's draft or tidal effects. So special attention must be taken for that. The main deck may be fitted with cell guides to stow containers. Cargo is loaded on a trailer and properly secured to form a unit. What precaution you will take while loading, carrying, discharging refrigerated cargo? Precaution while loading, carrying in, discharging refrigerated cargo. Local port regulations should be known to ship's officer with respect to opening and closing of compartment and accepted working temperature for stevedores to avoid friction with them and delay to the ship. Clean cargo should not come in contact with dirty cargo. Damaged cargo must be rejected when loading a lower hold through a refrigerated twin deck. Canvas or tarpaulin must be hung around the opening to restrict the escape of cold air. Temperature must be maintained during the stoppage for meals, etc. During loading or discharging, when the compartment is open, frost may form onto the brine pipe. This must be brushed away onto tarpaulins and removed to prevent its falling on cargo and causing damage by wetting. After loading, all outside access should be sealed with paper to ensure good circulation. Shipper must provide the vessel with loading and carrying temperature and other requirement. Temperature control is most essential and must be strictly maintained. Daily records showing the temperature in each compartment are to be kept for each watch. During transit, keep record and control of CO2 concentration. Compartment must be ventilated with fresh air prior to main entry for discharge. What precaution you will take while loading heavy lift? The deck load should not be concentrated but should be distributed over a large area by using dunnage to spread the load. The load density of the deck must never be exceeded. The metacentric height, that is GM, which is measure of the ship's stability, should be adequate at all stages of the voyages. Shift of the center of gravity due to fuel or water consumption from the tanks, creation of free surface effect or accumulation of water, ice or snow on deck should not be adversely affect the stability. The weight should be properly distributed to avoid any least or excessive trim. All opening in the weather deck, example hatch cover, hatch accesses, etc., must be securely closed and battened down before deck cargo is stowed on top of them. Ventilator, air pipes and other working gear must be in good order and protected from damage. Access to be maintained to safety equipment control for remote operation or valves, pumps, etc. Height of deck cargo should be such as to not impair the visibility from which. Deck cargo should not be extending beyond the ship side. Proper lashing is to be done. Lashing must be carried out by competent person in accordance with the cargo securing manual or code of safe practices. The lashing material should be taken into forces exerted on the cargo as a result of motion of the ship in most severe weather condition expected for that voyage. The method of lashing should be appropriate for that type, size and weight of cargo. Choking have to be carried out in between the spaces of cargo by using dunnage. Eyes and lashing should be welded at strengthened points. Lashing should be regularly inspected and tightened. All particulars to be entered in the mate's logbook. All clear walking space on deck at least 600 wide should be approved provided for the SS for personnel to and from their workplaces. If this is not possible, and then a walkway is to be built over the deck cargo. The walkway is to be of sound construction and firmly secured. 3 courses of wire or rails to a height of 1 meter are to be run on each side of the walkway, supported by stanchion along the length. Projections, slack steel bands and other such food traps and hazards should be marked and highlighted. Precaution while loading, discharging sugar. The cargo should be inspected before loading, especially if it is arriving by barges. The cargo should not be wetted by salt water. Bags should not be torn and bleeding. Port marks to be clearly legible on the bags. Separation of the cargo should not be carried out by paint marks or water marks. The cargo must be loaded all over the hold. No loading should be carried out during wet or threatening weather. The fermentation can be detected by the presence of an alcoholic vapors. When such vapors are detected, thorough ventilation should be carried out. No neglect should be permitted in the vicinity of the hold. Any entry inside the hold should be with proper breathing apparatus. In case of fire, flooding of the compartment recommended, but this hold should be carried out in open sea. Ventilation should not be restricted during the voyage except wet and dry weather. Before discharging, the hold should be thoroughly ventilated before entry is allowed in the compartment. After completion of discharge, the hold should be thoroughly washed with salt water and rinsed with water. What precaution you will take while loading, discharging, carrying salt? Salt must be healthy, trimmed from side to side. Side to side. Good ventilation must be maintained throughout the voyage to prevent the sweat formation. The air inside the hold must kept dry. Dry goods liable to cake from moisture should not be stored with salt. Salt should neither be stored near wet or moist goods or in insulated compartment or refrigerated containers. On completion of discharge, the hold should be thoroughly hosed down, removing all the traces of salt particles and finally rinsed with fresh water to ensure proper cleaning. What precaution you will take while loading rubber? Rubber readily damaged by heat, hence ventilation carried out. Rubber be effectively separated from oily cargoes. and should be kept, and stained packages should be rejected. When used dunnage only, thorough dried dunnage to be used. Rubber should not be stored on thorough uneven surface and should not be only spiraling used to prevent sticking of a position by layer in some countries. Cargo should be separated from ladder, pillar, stiffeners, bracket, etc. by dunnage and matting to prevent contact with sweat. While discharging by slings, care should be taken that the bale in the slings is not stuck to one in the hold, as it is liable to fall when load is lifted. What precaution you will take while loading pulp? Wood pulp is very liable to damage and contaminated by dirt or remnants of the previous commodities in a ship hold. Surfboard hold should be clear. Pulp should be loaded and discharged with wire or chain slings. Remains of the previous hold should be carefully removed and the space cleaned before commencement of loading pulp. Bales of pulp may be unitized with wire bands securing the bales. If it is acceptable to lift by these bands, it is advisable that certificate of strength that proof for the bandings. What precaution you will take while loading coils of steel metals and steel wires? Precaution while loading coil of sheet metals or steel wire. Refer to MS Notice M831 and Stowage and Securing Code. Cargoes are heavy, they must not be carried in twin deck as the GM produces and there is a greater risk of cargo shift. The height to which this cargo can be stored is restricted by the load density of the deck and tank top. They should be stored in regular tiers from side to side, making maximum use of pillars, bulkhead, etc. Each coil is stored hard against its neighbor and wedges of dunnage driven under the routine rounds to prevent the coil from rollings. Locking coil should be lashed to the two coils supporting it. Stow should be secured by using wire lashing to secure the coils together. To lash each row to the bulkhead, dunnage is to be filling in the gaps. Wire coils may be stowed flat and tight against one another. What precaution you will take while loading steel billets? Precaution while loading steel billets. Refer to MS Notice number M831 and the Stowage and Securing Code. Cargoes are heavy, they must not be carried in twin deck as the GM reduces and there is a greater risk of cargo shift. The height of which this cargo can be stored is restricted by the load density of the deck and tank top. Any empty spaces should be fitted with dunnage to prevent the cargo from shifting. Dunnage should also be used to make a level platform for loading the billets, especially when they are irregularly shaped. The cargo should be overstowed and addition precautions such as storming and lashing may be taken. What precaution you will take while loading pig iron? Prior to refer to notice MS notice M831 stowage and securing code. Cargoes are heavy, they must not be carried in twin deck as the GM reduces and there is a greater risk of cargo shift. The height of which this cargo can be stowed is restricted by the load density of the deck and turn. The cargo should be spread over the entire tank top and trim level as far as possible. It should be overstowed with other suitable cargo to prevent it shifting. This is not possible, then shifting bows of long links or rollings constructed. This is rings to a height above the level of pig iron will have to be fitted. What precautions you will take while loading round bars and pipes? Precaution while loading round bars and pipes. Refer to MS Notice M831 and stowage and securing code. Cargoes are heavy, they must not be carried in twin deck as the GM reduces and there is a greater risk of cargo shift. Refer to MS notice and I think cargo are heavy, they must not be carried in twin deck as the GM. They should be stored fore and aft level from bulkhead to bulkhead, carefully tomed and lashed to prevent shifting. Overstowing may also be necessary. Spaces between large diameter pipes should be locked. What precaution will take while loading steel billets? Same. What precaution you will take while loading steel scrap and swath? Precaution while loading steel scrap and swath. Refer to MS notice number M831, the stowage and securing code. Cargoes are heavy, they must not be carried in twin deck as the GM reduces and there is a greater risk of cargo shift. Height ka same. This is loaded in bulk, must be leveled. The tank top must be protected by lowering few slings gently at first till a cushion is formed to absorb the impact of cargo falling from the conveyor belt. Metal scrap may also be included. Large pieces in various size, shapes and mass loaded by slings. Such cargoes is to be securely lashed to prevent shifting. Hold must be ventilated before man entering the hold. The cargo may consist of turning which are oil stained and as well as rakes and other impurities which make it spontaneously combustible, so proper fire precaution must be followed. What precaution you will take while loading the timber cargo? Constant supervision is necessary to achieve a solid stow at all stages of loading. She must be kept upright at all times, preventing unnecessary strain. Appendix A of the code provide guidelines to which for specific time of timber cargo. The cargo must be kept free of accumulation of ice and snow and quarter pilot boarding area and ship must be provided to access to be maintained of safe equipment and for environment. Height of deck cargo should be such as to improve the visibility from the wind. Deck cargo should not be extending beyond the ship side. Proper lashing to be done. Lashing will be carried out for the conversing. The size of the lashing material should not be taken into account. The forces exerting on the container spreader. That way, the material of lashing is to be appropriate for the type, size, and weight of the cargo. Choking have to be carried out in between the spaces of the cargo being used. Eyes and lashing should be welded by strengthening the points. Lashing should be regularly tight and on a clear walking. Then a walkway is to be sound clear. 3 walkways. Okay. How will you prepare wood for sulfur? So we thoroughly clean all inflammable material like rags, pieces of wood, etc. to be removed. No loose metal, etc. object to be left in the hold. While bilges to be tested and converged with limber boards. Any chinks should be caulked to prevent dust from finding its way into the bilges. Holes to be lime washed prior loading. CO2 system to be tried out. On discharge, hold must be cleaned with particular attention being paid to underside of hatch covers, box beams and ledges where dust can be lodged. How will you prepare your hold for loading coal? Hold preparation for loading coal. Holds to be swept and washed depend on the cargo to be loaded. A final rinse with fresh water retards corrosion and accelerates drying. Special attention to be paid to be inaccessible places, example behind frames, top of beam, underside of the hatch cover, etc. Bilges to be thoroughly cleaned and washed. Bilges suction to be tried out satisfactory. Rose boxes from boxes to be cleaned. Bilges will be free from ventilation system. CO2 system checks. Parceling to be examined and repair required. Hatch bolts and tarpaulins to be checked in good condition. Guardrails check and are to be played around the twin decks and the dock regulation. Bilges to be covered with burlap and sealed with cements. Lighting in the hold means of access to be clear and safe from hazard. All cargo battens should be removed and to prevent air pocket and forming a helping through circulation of air. Boundaries of cargo compartment should be resistant to fire and liquid coal should not be stored against to bulkhead. How will you prepare your hold for loading rice? Hold should be clean, bilges to be clean, no dampness to be present. The hold bilges insufficient time is not available. Washing and drying then hold may be sprinkled with sawdust and blown down through the with hard brooms. Double dunnage is laid on the tank top consisting of wooden battens. The lower battery is spaced 25 centimeter apart and top one 10 centimeter apart. If not, bamboo is to be secured to the same closely placed to prevent any bags coming into contact with platings, frames, etc. Matting to be placed over any steel parts and not covered by spar ceiling, etc. Pillars, etc. The cargo must be inspected if it is loaded bags and rice and not with one or bleeding. Bags are filled with mixture of clean rice and paddy. Thoroughly temporarily vertical box ventilators are fitted with moist as one at each corner of the hatchway and one in the middle of the hatch coming on each side, marking 6 on all for the hatchway. 2 fitted at each side of the hold, 1 to port and 1 to starboard. This leads to permanent ventilator shafts. How will you prepare your hold for loading cements? Hold should be well swept. The limber board must be dust tight. Cleaning of frames, beams, etc. should be thorough. The hold carefully inspected prior to loading as sugar to the extent of any percent mixing with cement as the effect of rendering the cement worthless as a binding mixture. The hold should be well damaged to prevent the bags coming into contact with the steel work. Use could be made of damaged paper and bamboo mats to cover bulkheads and pillars. How do you prepare compartment for refrigerant cargo? Preparation of the compartment for refrigerated cargo. The compartment must be clean, dry, and free from any odor or taint. The insulation and permanent damage to be checked and prepared as necessary. Scuppers are to be cleaned and brine traps checked, tested, and refilled. Brine trap prevent warm air from entering the compartment, cold air from escaping, at the same time allowing drainage of water. Thermometer should be in position, ventilator plugs into the compartment fitted in place and tightly wedged. Brine pipes are to be tested and to ensure that they are not checked and that no leaks occur at the joints. Compartment should be cooled down prior to loading to a temperature slightly lower than the transit temperature to allow for fluctuation during loading. Dunnage lead in the compartment is also to be cooled before cargo is loaded. Otherwise, it will stain the cargo in contact with it. How will you prepare hold for loading salt? All steel work and all given a coat of lime. Bilges cleaned and sweetened, side battens removed, pillars in the hold must be similarly covered. Separation cloth may be used to keep the salt away from steel work. For loading sugar, hold should be made free of acid and oil stains. Used, cleaned and dried, washed, cleaned, tested, and cement coated. Beat the tank manhole, sounding pipes, and all pipes and all air pipe connection to the top plating should be checked for water tightness. Limber board should be made sugar tight by calling. How you will prepare your shoe for loading paper rolls? Hold preparation for loading paper rolls. Hold must be properly prepared before loading. Hold must be clean and any sharp protrusion should be cushioned in the best possible manner to avoid damage to the paper. Ventilator or fan opening must, however, be left free to operate as air circulation is very necessary to avoid sweat damage to the paper. Few slings in the hatch square may be pre-slung to provide space for landing and working the forklift at the discharge port. Rolls of paper should be stowed solid and well choked to avoid the movement when the vessel is at sea. All stanchions, ladders, etc. should be well covered with the burlap or other protecting material to avoid chafing. Dunnage should be used throughout to fill in gaps and prevent movement of the rolls. In case of fire, it should be hold containing paper, never use water. Close all opening and flood with the CO2. How will you prepare for loading pulp? Properly prepare before loading. Clean and sharp station should be cushioned in the best possible manner to avoid damage to the pulp. Ventilator or fan opening must be, however, be left free to operate as far circulation is very necessary to avoid sweat damage to the pulp. Remnants of the previous cargo and the space cleaned before the compartment of loading cargo. Few slings in the hatch square may be pre-slung to provide space for landing and working the forklift at the discharge port. Rolls of paper should be stored solid and well choked to avoid movement when the vessel is at sea. All stanchions, ladder, etc. should be well covered with burlap or other protection material to avoid chafing. Dunnage should be used throughout. In case of fire, hold should close all opening and flood the CO2. Okay. Tearing handling must be kept clear of any contact with roads, etc. Okay. Hazards associated with sulfur, fire, dust, explosion, corrosion. Hazards associated with cotton, fire hazards associated with coal, spontaneous heating, emission of methane, corrosion, liquefaction, hazards with the grain cargo, grain shift, associated with bulk cargo, structural stability, the bulk cargo hazard associated with cargo as structure stability chemical, advanced palletization. Advantages of palletization: it eliminates the cost of heavy packages, reduces handling and thereby the labor required, necessary the speed of the loading and discharging, reduces the amount of dunnage required, permits cargo to be stored compactably and tidily and thereby reducing the broken stowage. Faculties tailing of cargo. Disadvantages: loss of space or if the cargo hold in the hold must is other than the square shape. Loss of space below the deck head. Loss of space due to space occupied by the pallet. What advantage and disadvantage of containerization? Saving in all packing cost, less damage to the cargo during handling, prevention of theft and pilferage, less handling and very less damage, lower insurance premium for shippers due to heavy owners of damage and refugings. Prison quality and content easily tally and disadvantage: highly capital intensive, container ship cost twice as the other shipper has to pay leasing of the containers. High degree of training is necessary for smooth operation. Dispositioning of container after discharging is required. Infrastructure on land like and cards required. What are regulations for marking, labeling and placards of dangerous goods? Its correct technical name is to be durably marked, not trade or local name alone. Package are to be provided with even package play cards of dangerous goods. Correct technical name is to be durably Marked no trade or local name alone. Packages are to be provided with distinctive labels, stencils of the label, or placards to make clear from dangerous goods alone. Packages are to be provided with distinctively labels, stencils of the placards to make clear the danger properties of the goods. The information provided by labels on placard. In nature of what are the storage requirements for a dangerous incompatible should be stored. Packages are to be provided with distinctively labels. What are the requirements for dangerous goods? Dangerous goods are to be stored safely. Incompatible goods shall be segregated. Animal segregated. No segregated. What is the proper storage requirement for storage factor? What caution while learning use as far as minimize explosives, substances and other materials. What are the International Load Line Convention? It consists of a calculation for determining the load lines. Stored regularly as well for fixtures and what are the content of loading lines that I have? The load line mark the type of